Welcome to From Doubt to Destiny,
the podcast where dreams come alive. I'm Eden Ryder, the dream maker.
And I'm Stacie Trott, the queen maker. We're here to give your dreams the royal treatment that they deserve. Get ready to unlock your queen
and unleash her dreams.
I'm Stacie Trott, and I'm here with my co-host,
Eden Ryder.
I don't know why I like to introduce you with a nod. I do that every time, right? I'm just excited for you to say your name. Hopefully you are joining us again, but if you're new, welcome. I just said in our we're part 2 of a conversation on the mystery of marriage, and my producer told me, you don't have to say welcome. It's in the music. And I'm like, I want to say welcome because I want people to feel welcomed. Thank you for joining us today. And we were having a conversation about the mystery of marriage, and we knew it was going to go beyond the 40-ish minutes that we kind of like to stay around. So we're doing part 2 on the mystery of marriage. And we ended up talking a lot about pre-marriage, not post-marriage, but the whole thing. I think that's why I like the word mystery connected to it, is because whatever you think it is, it's different. Yes. So even the pre, the post, the in it, the whole thing, it's all different than what you expected it to be. And I think, demystifying the expectations is why we're here having this conversation. So every conversation we like to present a topic, which today it's the mystery of marriage, and this is part 2. And then we want to have a conversation around the tension on that topic, some transformational thoughts around it, and some takeaways, things that you can hopefully implement in your own life. I don't know that we did that in the last one, as far as we didn't wrap up with takeaways, but we were starting with the transfer. We were in the tension and some of the, talking about some of the bumpiness of the dating part of it. And I started out by talking about some of the pain that you can have in the beginning of marriage that I don't think I hear it spoken of often. And I personally have spent time helping some wives who really struggled in the beginning of marriage know they were not alone, and that what they were experiencing was not unique to them, and they hadn't blown up their lives, and to consider the possibility that God was taking them on a journey. And I just had a conversation with a wife a few days ago. It's like I magnetate. I am a magnet for drawing because of what I've been through in my own life, which was a bumpy first marriage that ended in divorce, and then a second marriage that is doing much better than the first. I was just having a conversation with a wife who's, I think, about 2 years in, and it's not matching her expectations. And she said to me just a few days ago, I was ready to tell him, this isn't working. And I'm grateful because I was able to share some things and encourage both of them, or really more her, and about things she can do differently. And a big part of it is prayer and seeking God. And it's fascinating because for me, when I went into prayer about how God needed to fix and change him and our situation, God did a lot of work in me and helps me evolve and dealt with me. And then by the time he got to working with him, I was able to be a soft complement to that work God was doing, as opposed to an aggressive, which is probably my personality. But so mysteries of marriage, what do we want to continue the conversation about around that? A big part, I think, of the mystery is the expectations, and the fact that what the expectations are and what the reality of the experience is. And I hate to show a high and a low, but they're just different. And I think we have very, very high expectations of what and who this person is supposed to be. And the reality is, God is not going to allow the person that you marry to be your everything. He's a jealous God. He doesn't want that for you. And so you're going to have to do your work on you. And you're going to have other places and spaces where you get your cup fully full. And some of that is your relationship with God. Some of that is your relationship with your female friends. I'm so grateful for the women that I have in my life. And as I continue to grow and evolve, I'm looking forward to strengthening those relationships so that my husband can be my husband and maybe still my best friend, but he doesn't have to be my girlfriend. Because there's
Yeah.
stuff you do with a girlfriend that's different than what you want to do with your husband. And I think women can sometimes, because they want to make this thing work, not oxygenate their female friendships. The next thing you know, they're trying to get their husband to go do their nails with them. And like, we should go get facials. And I'm not knocking if you and your, husband want to do that stuff, but there's some things that I think are meant to be for the female connections and bonds that have a place in a space. And then there's other things that are meant for that marriage relationship. And so grateful for being able to oxygenate all of the relationships as opposed to being over leveraged in one area and then under connected in another. But the expectations, I remember in the first marriage we had gone to, I think it was the first year, to a marriage conference that my church was having. And at the end of the conference, one of the ministers was giving a word from the front of the room to the various couples in the room. And I was kind of like, oh, I don't even know what you're going to say to us, but probably nothing helpful because we were in such a bad place. And I remember the word he said was, he looked at us and he said expectations. And I pray I never forget it, because if he explained it, I don't know that the rest of what he said didn't stick, but I remember him saying that word. And I remember for a while, because I was in such a desperate place that whatever I got, I was like, what does that mean? How can that help me? And I remember feeling like, I don't know what to do with that. Yes, I have failed expectations. But I think as I evolved and I remember thinking about that, what I think God was trying to tell me was to give me, meaning give him, my expectations and let him show me what he had for me, because my expectations was to probably have a perfect picture. Let's just, get the work, get the help, use the tools, but like, let's do this thing kind of right. And it was anything but that. And part of what I had to do was get rid of the expectations, which were pretty quickly, immediately decimated. And if I could get rid of those and say, okay, God, what are you going to do with this mess? If I had held on to the expectations, I would have been like, too much disappointment, can't do this. Let me take my L, get this divorce and move on. And I probably would have taken the failed expectations here and then just said, somebody else has got to meet these expectations. And I would have held on to them, and I would have wanted to kind of try to find someone to check those boxes from a place of brokenness. And who knows, only God does. But I think I probably would have failed at that, because I would have been bringing the messiness and the failed expectations and said, you're supposed to heal and fulfill, not intentionally, but subconsciously. So I'm grateful that I had that moment where expectations was highlighted for me, and I was able to eventually go, all right, I guess I just gotta, this is already so much not what I expected it to be. If I was writing a story, it's been blown up already. So we're not doing that. Now, where do I go with these failed, unmet expectations? What do I do with all this disappointment? And I feel like what God was telling me is, bring it to me. I'll turn those beauty into ashes, but you're going to have to give it to me. You're going to have to bring it to me. And what you thought marriage was going to be, it's not going to be that. But if you trust me, I'll show you that what I have for you in marriage is going to be better. And he has used this thing that I think I would have made, I'm certain now in hindsight, I would have made an idol out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't, because I didn't have the option or the luxury. He took it from me before I could have made an idol out of it. And so, and allowed me to orient it correctly, in the right space underneath my relationship and connection with him. It would have probably come first, and God would have been percolating somewhere in the background when the marriage wasn't great. Then I would have run to him, but it would have been like, he'd have been my plan B, not my plan A. And in it falling apart, he became plan A. And I knew going into marriage 2.0, oh, you're going to have to stay plan A, because you're putting two not fully healed people back together. And we're going to go through a process of healing in marriage, your way, your terms, your timing, the messiness that you're going to allow. And that was a really hard thing for me. But I've seen a lot of people that I've had conversations with have a real, like, even people that look like they have a good marriage, and when they tell you kind of the highlights, if you dig a little bit and you ask certain questions, you start to hear where some of the problems are.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say one of the mysteries for me of marriage is that it's not been anything like I thought it was going to be. It's been the thing that has brought me probably the greatest source of, not greatest, but a great source of problems and trauma. But it's also been a place that God has used it to help heal me and grow me and stretch me. I remember this book I heard about called, I think it's called The Sacred Marriage. And the subtitle of the book is What If Marriage Wasn't Meant to Make You Happy? What if it's meant to make you holy?
Mm.
And I remember thinking, what a novel concept. Because I think the industry that we're in when you get married and the images and all that, rom-coms, we talked about that, is all about happiness and smiles and puppy dogs and ice cream and pink and light. And what about the holiness that comes from two people, both with either a capital T or small t traumas that they've experienced, that they're probably some portion of it subconsciously not aware of. And now you got to work through that in the messiness of life, pressures, demands, obligations, bills, all the things, temptations, and all of that, and still try to figure out, how do I navigate this life thing with you? So it's been a messy mystery, and I don't think that I, in any way, shape, or form, would say I figured it out. I would say I'm always figuring it out. So it's definitely been a very interesting thing. And if I was going to say something about the messiness of marriage or the mystery of it, is I personally don't know how to do it without my foundation being in God. I don't know how to do it like otherwise. Like, as much as I like you, there are days where it's good. One of the things you said to me is like, it's good, but then there are days where it's hard, or there's seasons where it's challenging. Would you say in this marriage you've been in, because you're like, it's really good, it's solid, we have a great communication, it's been so much better than the parts we went through that were really hard. Have there been any parts in marriage in the 2 years that have been hard?
I think, I mean, yes, I think obviously, like, there's just certain day. I think to your point, when it's just you, like when you only have to worry about yourself, like when you wake up, it's the mood you're in, like whatever, everything's in like your momentum. And I also think at times you don't have that mirror reflecting at you. So like things you thought you've worked through, or things you thought you like know, or you're like, I worked through that, I have this, I got that. Like you don't actually, it's all in theory. Like you don't get to do it in practice until you have someone every day, like kind of reflecting it back at you.
Yeah.
And also like people just have their off days. So I know there's been times, if like, again, I don't feel like it happens a lot, but like you have your off days, or like energetically you're going through something, you don't know what it is. When you wake up, like you're so in tune to where it's like, well, what's wrong with you? Like I woke up in a phenomenal mood, and like your mood right now, or energy, is just like not aligning with what I feel like right now. So I think that can like throw it off. Or even like, I'm very grateful that I feel like we both are people who desire to grow and grow together, which is amazing. But we've had to like, I was very much came, I think, from like I've grown a lot. So I don't own it anymore, but like very much like risk adverse, and like chose very smart, what I considered smart, like stable, make sense, logical choices. And then, like he's an actor, and like he's used to like uncertainty or more turbulence, where like he can go with the flow more. Like I'd say when we first started, like he was more go with the flow, and like used to like, I don't know, like this might happen, it might not, or like it will happen at some point, where I'm like, wait, what? Like I was very much like like came from like a state, like I chose very smart choices, versus like where I always wanted to be more like passionate and fun things I actually love. So I guess what I'm getting at is, yeah, I think adjusting to someone who lived very much more in the moment, and was more like, even his career wasn't something that's like your typical career of like, you have this job and we know when this goes, like it's very much like those type of things, which has been
Mm-hmm.
also like brought the most, I think, like growth and beauty. But I'm not going to act like, oh yeah, no, it's just a piece of cake. Like every day I was just like, yeah, I'm trusting. Like I definitely have had to grow in that regard. And like, again, I've talked to therapy of like reframing my mind around of like what you think is stability to someone else isn't. So like, I think that's been hard. And I think also, again, it's just the days of like, even or if I'm in it, like, I think if actually, to be completely honest, I'm getting better, but I think I wear my emotions more at times. So like I can like wake up in a mood or get in a mood where it's actually my energy that's probably affecting him, not the other other way around. So
For the people that are not watching visually, I'm raising my hand. I am too. I think women can be more moody
yeah,
or like, my husband wakes up and he's like, it's a good day. And I'm like,
yeah,
really? I'm not feeling like it's such a good day. I want to, but I don't wake up with the disposition of kind of joy. I don't start there. I'm working on it, but I'd like to start out where I wake up and I'm like, I'm grateful to be alive. It's a good day. So yeah, I think women can be just more complex with the way I think our
the waves
balancing
of
of even
emotions
hormones
or
and emotions.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, but so like what you were saying, I think it's also, it can be harder, but there's so much beauty in that. Cause I think when you don't, like, you need another person, I think, to bring those aspects out of you, and also challenge, but challenge in a good way. Like, I think
Yeah.
in my experience, or at least what I desire
Mhm.
in a marriage, like, is someone who isn't, he always is challenging me of like, he doesn't just go along with everything I say. He knows when I'm like playing small, I would say, or if I'm acting out of like fear or I'm being like very emotional, like he will challenge me on that. And which was annoying to me at times of like, you like, there's so much more, or like, do you really feel that way, or you don't even like. So I think it's having a person who at times, if you just want to kind of like slide by, or like, I just don't want to process that, like where he, I don't know why I keep saying mirror, but like he like brings that out of
Great
me,
word.
where I
It's a
think
great
when
word.
you don't have another person who is around you every day and like knows like you're good, bad, and ugly, that you can't hide as much, I guess, is what like it definitely, where I've been, it's been a beautiful thing for me, but like it can be messy at
Mhm.
times where it's like, if I just want to like stay in this funk, or if I don't, like he doesn't really let me. So
Correct.
like
Same.
you're
Same. I have the
yeah.
same. And for disclosure, if you're watching the first time, our husbands are friends. They've been friends for 20 plus years. So there's some similarities in the reason why they've been friends for so long. Same, 100%. I think mirror is a fantastic word because I think that is exactly what the partnership does for you. I'm thinking about the verse where the Bible talks about iron sharpens iron. So there's the mirror, but then it's also you're sharpening each other.
Mm.
And if you ever seen iron being sharpened, there's sparks that fly from it. So it's not a fun process, but it's a necessary one for you to get sharp. And the other thought I had while you were describing kind of what Steph does for you in a complimentary way is I can personalize it. I feel like the version of me that I am meant to be at the premium top version of what the potential is, I get there with this iron being
Mm.
what's next to me and sharpening me. And so you're basically describing, I mean, I see ways where I can see how you've elevated Steph's life, and you're like, yeah, and he elevates mine because he's forced me to look at myself and go, don't play small. Do you know who you are?
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And it ties back to the thing about the title where in that marriage making you holy, kind of burning away. There's a holiness aspect in it in connection with like, God make me better, and like I'll come into your presence and I'm praying about you fixing the other person. And then when I get in there, you start showing me things about me that I need to work on. And so that's part of the holiness element. But I think also it's like having this person that gets to rub up against you, that challenges you to be better. And when you don't have that, you can be whatever you think and you can see, but you have blind spots.
Yes.
And that's part of what the mirror catches. Your partner being a mirror. I'll tell one other quick story. I was sharing with Eden off camera that I tend to be pretty calm in my demeanor and presentation. And when my husband and I are in therapy, sometimes he gets very animated and he'll say in the therapy, like, see, she's so calm. She's making me look crazy. And I'm like, no, you're just acting crazy because this is you being yourself. I'm not doing that. But just even like the iron sharpening iron, that's where I'm triggering things in him, and I can be triggered, but my version of triggered is similar to yours. I want to shut down. So and our therapist can tell because I'll like get super quiet and like, it's like, I'm done. And so, but thank God that he'll be like, no, we need to talk about this. Like, what do you mean there's stuff that you haven't told me? You have, of course you need to tell, like, and so I'm like, well, you're acting like a lunatic. So why would I want to tell you the things that you like? So it's a whole thing, but I'm grateful because I can tell I'm evolving into a version of myself I know I would not be becoming if I wasn't being rubbed up against by another human being that I've chosen not to escape from. Talk a little bit about, we talked about off camera, the fact that part of what the mystery of marriage is you can be this she-woman with all this independence, and then you get into the relationship and you're like, oh, wait a minute, my independence has some dependence in it. It's got some connectivity, and it's by choice because I've tied my life to yours. And so I can't just like pick up and go and do whatever I want, because we have to be in unity and be on the same page and be in unity about where we're going, because we've tied the image I'm seeing is like tying the shoelaces together. So like when I move, when I move, you move. And when you move, I move. And we got to figure out, where do we want to move together? So how does that part of marriage been for you? And that like you're literally in another country because he needed to move. So you're moving. And you're about to have your second child in another country because he moved. So you moved. So how is that part of marriage I don't think you had any expectation that you were going to be kind of where you are right now physically, but also like, you don't even know what's next behind this because you chose an actor. So you're going to go where the work is. And so like, how has that been as far as the mystery of marriage for you?
Yeah, I mean, that all feels good to me in the sense of like, I love traveling and visiting new places, and also how I personally desire to like set up my life and having a balance of like wanting to be able to be there for my children, but then also have my own things. So like building my coaching business right now, where I want to be able to control my schedule and be able to do it from anywhere in the world. So like that part feels amazing. But I will say, I think the dependency and like, I think reframing it was interesting. Like when you were talking, I forget exactly what you said earlier about being on a pedestal. I think what's interesting in my situation, I know I've talked about a lot. Like I was always like, I know I want to be a wife. I know I want to be a mom. So I think I was more codependent, or I don't know what the word would be, but like,
I don't know what the healthy one is. I forget what it's called.
But I think I was more just of like wanting to be that person's everything and so I was like sacrificing myself for that person. And I was 100% placing like previous relationships on a pedestal. So I realized very quickly after like one of my long-term relationships of like, that's not healthy. And it's also like these people everyone's like a human. Like it's also not healthy, not realistic for anybody. So what's interesting though is I feel like I overcorrected the other direction after that of dating. So long story short, I feel like I then was like, it was great because I went on this like journey of having a relationship with myself, dating myself, all of that. And I got really great at being alone. Like really, really great at being alone, where I'm like, I know I can be alone. I like, it's healthy. Like, I know I still desire this. So I didn't fully go there. However, I think Stefan, in a way, when I then first started, it's like, well, no, like I'm independent and I don't need you. Like I definitely overcorrected where it was like in an unhealthy way of like,
Mhm.
you want this person, like obviously someone wants to feel needed. And then also when you like say, at least for me, like if there's certain like whatever, like masculine and feminine roles and like certain things you want them to do, you also need to give them the space to do that. And I think at
Mhm.
times I was overcorrecting of like, well, I don't need you for this and I don't need you for that. And like, I'm going to be fine without you. So I like my parents will joke of like, A, who are you? And like, where like you, and it's great to see you like in this space, but like you've
Yeah.
gone a little bit too far the opposite direction. So the dependency, I think it's again like a way of balancing of like, I think I've said it before, like I believe like I think you should, like I think you're each two individual whole people who when you come together bring out even more and can do more as two together and evolve
Yeah.
and grow, and I think do so much more for each other and like ideally like the world together. Like you become like a, like you're
Dynamic
better
force.
together where
Yeah,
you, yeah, like
absolutely.
you're like that, I don't want to say like power couple, but like you know what I mean, like together you can do more, you
Yeah,
can
that's good.
accomplish more, like you can be more for other people, where I think that's what it is. And they're,
Mhm.
in doing that you have to surrender, I would say, a bit
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
yourself. You're not losing it, but you are like, it's a balance of times, like I think they take up more space, there's times you take up more space, there's times that you need to
Yeah.
be more for the relationship. Like I might be like,
Yeah.
I am maxed out, like I'm emotionally drained, like you're gonna have to carry us a little bit here, or vice versa. Like there's weeks where it might be like he has a hard week and like our focus needs to be on like what he's, you know what I mean? So I think it's,
Yeah, yeah.
there's always a delicate balance of that. And I think for a mystery, I think it's this whole like, at least how I feel like I was kind of sold it. It's almost like this person like completes you, or it's always like 50-50, and it's always like just the idea of like
Mhm. Mhm.
you
Mhm.
all like what you always have to be like, you know what I mean? Like where it's just it, to me
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
more
yeah.
realizing it's like,
That's a really good way you said it, the 50-50. Like we're gonna both equally carry the load.
yes,
That's not a thing. It's like I don't think it's ever been 50-50, and I think we have moments where we're carrying each other.
yeah,
And I'm grateful for that, right? But that's one of the mysteries is you go in thinking we're just going to be like whole person, and we're just going to be amazing. And it's like, no, broken person, healing, growing together. And the weight shifts back and forth where you're carrying each other in the middle of it and helping each other get better and stronger. And there's times where you're in the lead and then they're in the lead. And it's nice when you're able to switch and they are able to lead and you're being like, thanks for carrying me. Thanks
and
for
would you,
carrying.
yeah. And then it's interesting because I feel like for me I'm like, okay, I only have like a very small amount of years, so I can say, I don't even know if it's the words like enduring it, but like when you're together for like, if you guys are going on like 10 years of marriage, is there times where if like those seasons, I would say, because they could probably be more like seasons of where it can be extended seasons where you feel like I'm the one carrying, or like you're focusing more on one or the other, that it feels like you're enduring, or it feels
Absolutely.
like, yeah,
Very much like in that season that you were in when you were dating, when you were like, I feel like I'm carrying us in this moment because you were. And I think the thing is, and this is why it's so important to be in community and to have relationship with other um, people who are where you want to be and are further along in the journey, so that when you forget, this is a moment, this is a season, this is a pocket, that you endure through those times and you become stronger and the unity in the relationship becomes stronger. Um, so absolutely, there will be more moments of endurance. And I know, I think you went through some hard parts. And so you're probably like, we're good. We're done with that. There are more in store. And I hate when people say that to me because it's like, don't tell me about bad that's coming. Just, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to think about it. Just let me be good. And I have a woman in my life who's like, God is going to continue to stretch you and grow you in ways that are going to be challenging. And just remember to go through those seasons and endure because he will get you through them. And so, yeah, I think of it like this.
The hills.
It's yeah, it's this. And it's nice when you're at high moments. But there will be valleys and endure. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the speakers were talking about I think it was Jackie Hill Perry on a podcast, and she was saying that she was reading from Galatians 5, and she was reading the fruits of the Spirit. And one of them is temperance or long suffering. And we don't like that one because it's like nobody wants that fruit. But God allows there to be seasons of suffering because what it produces is this level of grit and conviction that being at the top of the hill just doesn't. And, it's one thing to feel like you feel seen by your partner and that you feel like this person is safe and they've got your back. It's another thing to go through things and know this person has proven themselves to show up. But what I'll add to that is part of the mystery of marriage is no matter how good of a partner you get partnered with, that person is imperfect. They are human. They will disappoint and fail. And that's why I think it's so important to have that foundational relationship with God, because He is consistently faithful. And so there are times when your partner isn't showing up in the way that they could or should or that you desire. But that's where that intimacy and connection and relationship with God carries you through those moments. And so whenever I can tell I'm in a season where God is bringing me into a greater level of intimacy with Him, that means it's gotten hard. It's not always the marriage. It's life, it's work, it's kids, it's parents, it's, relationships, friendships, all the things. But part of the mystery for me has been similar, I think, to what you were saying, is like you thought this thing was going to be the thing. And then once you got it, you were going to feel the sense of fulfillment. And part of the mystery is like, oh no, you thought this thing was going to fulfill you. It's going to stretch you, grow you, change you, improve you. But the mystery is you're going to still be evolving and changing and growing, and so will this other person. And so you're just going to have to kind of grow in it together. And sometimes you're growing together and sometimes you're growing. And they're not growing next to you in the way that you would hope. I'm sure it didn't feel like when you were in that pocket and he was like in his health situation that you felt like you were growing in partnership together. I doubt it felt like that. You were putting some good reps in. You were putting good reps in, not knowing it was building muscles that you were going to get through, and even just some of the other things, right? So it's nice when you're growing together, but you're not always growing together. And I think one of the things that's important, if I had a takeaway, because I don't think we've done too many takeaways as we're getting near wanting to like kind of wind down, is like, let's maybe go into some takeaways. So one takeaway I would say is find community. And I recently spoke at my church, and one of the things I mentioned is like find a midwife. And in the context I was speaking, it was God giving you a word and then not being able to see the evidence of it yet. And so how do I birth this thing that I can't see, but my faith says it's going to happen? And a midwife helps you birth something that is there, but no one can see it yet, right? It's on the inside. And so it's got to come out. But I've had midwives and I have been a midwife, and you need someone further along in the journey to help you. My girlfriend calls it a sherpa, right? They've been up the mountain before and they're like, this is the way to go. And these are the tricks and these are the tools you need in your backpack to climb this mountain. And that's one of the things that is a passion for me, is being, a sherpa is a person who helps you climb or go on a journey, and they've done it so they can guide you through it. Is that God has taken me on a journey in marriage, or with marriage being the tool that He used to help refine me, that I'm like, okay, there's some things I've learned about how to do this thing that no one but God taught me. And I got bits and bops from various things, but what's in my toolkit right now are the things that God has given me. So I'm grateful. We're connected. You're 2 years in. I will always be a phone call and a text message away for those parts that get challenging, because the goal is to have the longevity of what comes from. And I look in awe at married couples that are like 50 years married. Yes. And you see it and you're like, man, I wanna sit at a table with you without a clock and be able to hear the wisdom of the depth of that journey. Because there's so much in there. And, if they're 50 years in, typically you're seeing maybe they've gotten to a place where it's like they've weathered and they're kind of good, but you're like, how did you get there? How did you do it? Because it is going to there's going to be parts that are really hard and challenging. So my personal desire is to be able to, one, hopefully be able to see it around me so I can drink from the fountain of wisdom that comes from other people having had the experience, and then also be able to give to others the wisdom so that I learn that I've earned to be able to help others. So if there was a takeaway, I would say try to find community of women who have what you want. And sometimes you can find it in a physical human being, but other times, when I was in the season of when we were separated, getting divorced, God had told me he was going to restore our marriage. So I literally would Google restoration marriage stories, and I found community and other people who had shared their books, their blogs. I don't think I found too many videos, but I would find like chat rooms with testimonials and for people around the world telling their stories of God's restoration. And so I didn't necessarily have too many physical people that I knew personally that had what I was looking for, but it was there. And with the advent of the internet and the fact that we can find community around maybe what you're going through, and don't quit when it gets hard, because hard is just a part of the growing, birthing process. And the other thing I'll say is that anything worth having requires work. Anything worth having requires work. And so it doesn't mean that you have to stay in something that's abusive. I'm never advocating that. But if it's hard, that doesn't mean that it's like not worth it. So I would say that like the endurance is going to come through the challenges that will come. And that's part of the mystery, is I don't think anyone sells you on the part that it's going to be really hard, that it's going to take you to your knees, that you're going to want to tap out sometimes, that you're going to think you made a terrible mistake. And those are the parts where you want to say, okay, God, what have you done? What are you doing? And I was grateful that I had prayed before. So I felt like God had told me this was where I was going. I think it's really important to get that insight, because we can make a mess out of our lives by choosing somebody that God was not in that. He was showing you big red, yellow, purple flags not to do it, and you did it anyway. And then sometimes we can choose somebody and then go, God bless my mess. And he can do anything. So there are stories of people who, God was clearly not here, but they have found him and gotten help and healing. But there were other, I will advocate for, seek him, get a word, get a sense of like, this is where I'm feeling, this is what God is telling me to do, this is what I'm feeling led, this is the person that I feel peace to choose to be in partnership with that peace. Then you can kind of like go with the blessing of like, okay, I did seek his counsel and his guidance, and I felt led. And so now if I get in it and it's messy, I know I didn't bring myself here. So I can go back to the source and go, can you help me? Because it's messy. And I'm guessing this is just part of the plan, and I didn't expect this part, but can you help me through it? And he will show up, and he'll use whoever he so chooses. So it's even been bumpy in the marriage that you had, and I'm grateful you kept it like nice and light. Yes, we've had to work through some challenges, but I think the foundation of the hard part you had before helped you get to a good place. And so we're an example of 2 years in, almost 10 years in. I think we agree it's mysterious. And mystery to me is like, I just don't have it all figured out. I could talk about quite a bit of it, and I would still say there's mystery here. And you see examples where it works, and then you see examples where like, wow, it seemed like that should have worked and it didn't, and why. So there's a mystery, and I would say the only solution I have to the mystery is to stay close to that intimate relationship with God, because he will help you navigate the parts when you're like, I don't know what is going on, how I got here, or how I'm going to get through this part. And if there was any other takeaway, it would be, you could just be in a pocket that you just got to kind of get through, and it gets better. There may be a lot of things that need to be done in that pocket to get you to where it gets better, But I would say if you're in a pocket where it's tough, you want to lean in and say, God, help me, seek me. He may be allowing the hard part so that you will go and seek him and get that advice and seek his counsel and put yourself in a place to receive from other people who are more seasoned. And you'd be surprised. You will be surprised in the mystery of how he can show up. So I guess to be continued for us around this topic of marriage, because it's going to continue to come up because it's a very important part of our lives. And I guess I'll just end with, I forgot. I was like, Eden's over here fanning herself. And I'm like, you are 9 months into this pregnancy. So maybe the next time we see each other, she might be holding a little one while we talk about all the things, which I think that'll also be fascinating to do. You can cry, you can do all the things while we talk about stuff, because we're here to also talk about real life while it's happening and evolving and we're growing and stretching. So there's mystery in marriage. I would also like to say there's beauty in it.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of beauty in it. There's pain too. I don't want to pretend. And I guess up front, I started with the pain so you can know if it's painful, that's okay. Hold on. You're about to be in maybe some measure of pain as you're about to birth something beautiful, right? But it's a part of the process. And so I don't know anyone who's been married that would say that it was without pain. I don't know a single person who would say it's without pain. So it is part of the process because growth includes pain, discomfort, but can also have a lot of beautiful things to it. So hopefully this was helpful, and we will put on our to-do list, or it's already on our to-do list, to create community. So there's places and spaces for us to be able to engage, so that to the extent this resonates and lands for you, there's some measure of community that you can connect with in the mystery, on the topic of the mystery of marriage. Until next time, take care. Remember to unlock your queen
and unleash her dreams.